headlines. The Kremlin says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is attending a war anniversary event in Moscow in May. This will mark Kim's first trip overseas since it took power in 2011. The Islamic State militant group gives Japan a 24-hour deadline to kill its second Japanese hostage. The Japanese government says it's doing all it can to bring its citizen home. And Apple's quarterly results surprise Wall Street. Its strong sales of big-screen iPhones during the holiday quarter and a sharp rise in China sales helped the company post the largest profit in corporate history. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the newscast. Live from Seoul, I am Kang Tae-ri. There's a good chance North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will embark on a trip to Russia this spring to attend a war anniversary event, according to the Kremlin. Although it's not yet clear whether Kim will actually appear, experts say Pyongyang wants to gain as much attention as possible over the announcement. Kwon So-ah tells us why.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may be headed to Moscow this May. Citing the Russian presidential office, Seoul-based Yonhap News reported Wednesday that Kim is among the 20 heads of state that have confirmed their plans to attend Russia's celebrations, marking the 70th anniversary of victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. A week ago, the North Korean leader responded positively to Russian President Vladimir Putin's invitation to the event. If Kim makes the visit, it will be his first trip abroad since coming into power in 2011, and the first time a North Korean leader has not chosen China as his first overseas destination since the Korean War. But experts say Kim may actually want to head to Beijing first for North Korea-China talks.
North Korea wants to provoke China to respond to the announcement of Kim Jong-un's visit to Russia in order to talk to China before the North Korea-Russia talks. To push China, Pyongyang will be highlighting Kim Jong-un's visit numerous times up until the anniversary event.
Analysts also say Pyongyang is trying to provoke South Korea and the U.S. too for similar reasons, saying that if Kim's visit to Russia comes ahead of Interkorean and U.S.-North Korea talks, a new round of frosty relations will likely form. Kremlin has not yet finalized its guest list, which still leaves Kim's attendance pending, as well as South Korean President Park Geunhye's attendance, as she too has been invited. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Top nuclear envoys from the United States and Japan expressed their support for South Korea's efforts to improve inter-Korean relations. Following a trilateral meeting in Tokyo Wednesday, South Korea's chief nuclear envoy Hwang Jun-guk said they agreed on the need for a strong signal from the North about its sincerity toward denuclearization in order to resume the stalled six-party nuclear talks. This multilateral dialogue involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia, has been stalled since late 2008. Inter-Korean trade hit a new high after the Kaesong industrial complex restarted more than a year ago, but that does not necessarily mean the future is secure, as several factors that could hinder growth remain. Our Song Ji-sun tells us more.
Could this be a bright sign for the two Koreas' future relations? The Korea International Trade Association said on Wednesday inter-Korean trade volume topped $2.3 billion in 2014, more than double the figure from the year before. The cumulative trade volume over the past 26 years is $22 billion. Inter-Korean trade dropped to an 8-year low in 2013, the year Pyongyang shut down the jointly run Kaesong industrial complex, citing heightened tensions on the peninsula. It resumed operations there 5 months later. The products from the complex account for almost all inter-Korean trade. The recent jump in trade volume could get an extra boost from a recently concluded free trade pact between Seoul and Beijing, as the two sides agreed to acknowledge Kaesong products as being South Korean in origin. Manufacturers who invest in the Kaesong complex will gain a competitive edge, as their labor costs will be lower than those in China. But obstacles to the stable growth of inter-Korean trade remain, with bilateral tensions a major concern. North Korea added a new clause in September last year that allows it to detain South Korean businessmen if they do not comply with a contract or failed to make agreed payments. Pyongyang held South Korean businessmen when it shut down the complex in April 2013, saying they had outstanding bills. Another challenge will be expanding the capacity of the factories within the complex. Seoul banned facilities investment in the joint complex after the sinking of Cheonan warship in 2010. 송지선, ARIRANG News.
Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol says the uncertainty over global oil prices is sizable. During a meeting with economic experts on Wednesday, he said that the central bank is devising scenarios in case prices continue to remain low or rebound. The governor also said its revised growth outlook from earlier this month factors in a potential rise in oil prices in the second half of this year. Apple's latest quarterly results are in, and the numbers wowed Wall Street. It sold 74.5 million iPhones thanks to three factors: big screens, holiday shopping, and China. Our Kim Jong-un has more.
Apple saw its revenue and profit soar during the holiday quarter thanks to record sales of its plus-size iPhones. Apple sold 74.5 million iPhones during its first fiscal quarter of 2015 that ended December 27, 2014. Sales during the period drove the company's total revenue to $74.6 billion, up 30% from a year earlier. The company's net profit went up to its highest level of $18 billion, reporting earnings of $3.06 a share. Released in September of last year, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus models are the biggest iPhones yet, equipped with a 4.7-inch and 5.5-inch screen. That compares to the 4-inch screen on its previous iPhone 5 models. The jump in quarterly sales was also helped by sales of the iPhone in China. Market tracker Canalys says Apple dominated the Chinese smartphone market during the October to December period last year. Apple recorded sales of around $16 billion in mainland China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong during its fiscal 2015 first quarter. Apple is predicting its second quarter will be just as amazing as its first, with revenue of between $52 to $55 billion. This while other U.S. companies such as Microsoft have lowered their forecasts due to the strength of the dollar. The U.S. smartphone maker adds that it's releasing its next product, the Apple Watch, in April. Kim Jong-un, ARIRANG News.
And staying with earnings reports, the world's second largest chipmaker, SK Hynix, posted record high profits and sales for a second straight year in 2014. Its sales exceeded the 17 trillion won level, or roughly $15.5 billion last year, up more than 20% from a year earlier. Operating profit went up by over 50% to $4.7 billion. Net income was also up 46%. The Korean chipmaker attributes this rise to its cost-saving efforts amid a stable business environment, with Samsung Electronics and Micron Technology remaining as its only rivals. And Korean electronics giant LG Electronics saw its net profit more than double in 2014 from a year ago. The company on Wednesday said its net income reached $462 million, up 125% on year. Its operating profit also jumped over 46%. The company attributed the rise to strong sales of its televisions and flagship smartphones. This report came a day earlier as regulatory law requires listed firms to file changes in its results by 15% or more from the previous year after a board meeting. A full earnings report is due out tomorrow. Islamic State militants have given Japan less than 24 hours to save the life of a Japanese hostage and a captured Jordanian pilot as well, that is. And we turn to Paul Lee at the News Center for more. Paul, the clock is certainly ticking. What's the latest update on this hostage crisis?
Well, in a new video, the group is threatening to kill the two men unless a convicted suicide bomber detained in Jordan is released by Wednesday night. Now, Japanese media reports are saying that a prisoner swap may be underway. However, there's been no confirmation on either side that a deal has been reached at this point. Earlier, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe called the new footage featuring the Japanese national Kenji Goto an utterly despicable act and vowed to secure his safe release.
It's a despicable act. I feel strong anger. I have put out an order that we work together as one on securing the release of Kenji Goto as soon as possible.
Now, this is an incredibly difficult situation, to say the least, for the Japanese government and the family, not at least. And let's go back to this latest video from the Islamic State militant group. What new details have emerged from this new footage?
Well, a 2-minute video which was posted on YouTube on Tuesday reiterated demands for the release of Sajida al-Rishawa, an Iraqi woman sentenced to death in Jordan for her involvement in a 2005 terror attack. The video's narrator said that any more delays by the Jordanian government to release her will mean they'll also be responsible for the death of a Jordanian pilot who was also being held captive. The Japanese government has been asking for Jordan in support for Kenji Goto's release. In a previous video uploaded on Saturday, a voice purported to be Goto's announced that the Islamic State militants had executed fellow Japanese hostage Haruna Yukawa, who was seized in Syria last August.
Now let's turn to other international stories making headlines today. Heavily armed men stormed a hotel in the Libyan capital, killing at least 10 people. It's been confirmed that an American and 4 Europeans were among the casualties. Have authorities there traced who's behind this coordinated attack?
Well, intelligence agencies are reportedly saying the 2 suicide bombers were known sympathizers of the Islamic State group, and they had targeted the hotel because it housed foreign diplomats. A new statement through social media also emerged on this Wednesday, with the Libya branch of this Islamic militant group claiming responsibility for the attack. Our Kim Jong-un reports.
A pair of gunmen stormed a luxury hotel in Tripoli Tuesday local time, killing at least 10 people, including 5 foreigners, before blowing themselves up. The attack began with a car bombing at the 5-star Corinthi Hotel, which is popular among government officials and visiting delegations. Security personnel evacuated guests, including the country's prime minister. The deaths of a French and an American national have been confirmed by their governments. The AFP said earlier that a Korean was among the dead. However, Seoul's foreign ministry said that no Korean casualties have been reported so far, citing Libyan officials, adding that it will report any new developments. A group calling itself Islamic State in Tripoli province said in a Twitter message it is responsible for the attack, saying it was revenge for an al-Qaeda terrorist suspect who died in the U.S. earlier this month. The Libyan prime minister condemned the attack and vowed that those responsible would be brought to justice. Kim Jong-un, ARIRANG News.
Now, let's shift to the United States. A massive blizzard has swept across the northwestern part of the country, leaving millions of people stranded in the snow. How bad is the storm?
Well, weather officials say it's on track to set record snowfalls across major cities in the northeast. This as 4.5 million residents are grappling with as much as a meter of snow, causing blackouts and coastal flooding. Massachusetts and Connecticut were the regions hardest hit by the icy winds. Officials there issued a statewide travel ban as whiteout conditions forced many roads to be closed. New York, however, was spared the brunt of the extreme weather as warnings of a historic storm turned out to be much more moderate. Amid rising public criticism, the city's mayor Bill de Blasio said he'd rather be safe than sorry.
Would you rather be ahead of the action or behind? Would you rather be prepared or unprepared? Would you rather be safe or unsafe? My job as the leader is to make decisions, and I will always err on the side of safety and caution.
Officials had earlier ordered all non-emergency vehicles off the streets, while the subway was completely shut down for the first time in the city's history. The National Weather Service has lifted the blizzard warning for the New York City area on this Tuesday. However, thousands of flights were canceled or are still delayed.
And finally, the internet giant Yahoo has announced plans to spin off its stake in Alibaba. Paul, the company's CEO Marissa Mayer has made this announcement when Yahoo was releasing its latest earnings on Tuesday. What's behind this big decision?
Well, during her keynote address, Mayer described this plan as a way to maximize the profits of this blockbuster investment into the Chinese e-commerce firm Alibaba, which went public on the New York Stock Exchange last year. By spinning off its 15% in Alibaba, Yahoo's shareholders stand to save about $16 billion in taxes, while still keeping this high potential asset in its portfolio. Investors welcomed the announcement, sending shares of Yahoo soaring by up to 8% in after-hours trading. This as Yahoo posted mixed results for its latest quarterly earnings. Revenue and profit both declined from a year earlier, but revenue from its mobile business jumped 23%, a performance that Mayer shows stability in its core business. Charity?
All right, Paul, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for those updates, and we will see you again in just about 2 hours. Marking the monthly Culture Day, President Park Geunhye watched the latest Korean blockbuster Ode to My Father, or 국제시장 in Korean. Before that, she met with the director, actors, as well as culture officials to highlight how quality content such as this movie has brought different generations together and strengthened national pride. President Park then said the film and television industries are a major part of our creative economy drive of merging different sectors to spur growth. Ode to My Father is a story about a Korean man who lives through major events in modern Korean history, including the Korean War in the 50s and the government dispatching nurses and miners to Germany in the 60s. It's one of the most popular and well-known productions here in Korea, featuring drum beats and kitchen utensils. Nanta recently made history for being the most watched Korean production of all time. Our Connie Lee tells us what this means for Korea's performing arts arena.
There's a lot of drumming, beating, knife wielding, and acting. This is just a brief behind-the-scenes look at Korea's very own production of Nanta. The rhythmic show just made history, hitting the 10 million viewer mark at home and abroad at the end of last year. That makes this not only the longest-running show in Korea, now in its 18th year, but also the most-watched Korean production of all time.
For a local theatrical production to hit 10 million viewers, it's unheard of. But Nanta did it. This gives hope to other locally made productions that they too could succeed.
To mark this milestone, a PMC production, the firm behind the show, celebrated this week and honored the original cast members pictured on the trademark Nanta poster. You might recognize some of them, like actor Lee Seung-ryong, who's had a recent string of hit movies. The nonverbal show about a group of chefs cooking for a wedding banquet came to life in 1997 by longtime actor turned producer and director Song Seung-hwan.
I was inspired by childhood memories of hearing my mother cook in the kitchen. I wanted to create a show that incorporated the traditional Korean rhythms of samulnori and thought the kitchen had a number of items that could create those beats.
After 2 years, the show, also known as Cookin' in the West, hit the global stage, becoming the first Korean production to enter the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 1999, and then in 2003, becoming Korea's debut on Broadway. Since then, Nanta has toured the globe and has been shown more than 31,000 times in 289 cities and 51 different countries. Critics rave about the show's comedic features, its family-friendly nature, and the fun Korean beats that can get any crowd going.
When I first created the show, I didn't think it would last this long. Today, I see even greater opportunities for Korean-made productions to succeed even more abroad.
Officials now have their eyes set squarely on China, as a Nanta theater is set to be built in Gwangju by this June. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
World leaders gathered with the survivors of the Auschwitz camp in Poland as Tuesday marked the 70th year since its liberation. There were memorials held closer to their homes, but hundreds of survivors traveled all the way to the infamous concentration camp site itself, where they had spent their childhood in order to mourn, remember, as well as remind the world of the atrocities committed by Nazi soldiers in the past. Our Kim Hyun-bin has more.
Nazi Germany's largest and most notorious concentration camp, Auschwitz, was where some 1.1 million people, mostly Jews, were killed between 1940 and 1945. Over 300 aging survivors and a host of world leaders visited Auschwitz on Tuesday to reflect upon the slaughter that took place there. Over 70 years have passed, but the last survivor said the world should never forget the horrors that took place in Auschwitz and the Nazis' other death camps.
Some of the people still saying that it never happened. I'm here to tell the world it happened, and the world have to learn from it and to live in peace.
The elderly, women, and young children were killed in gas chambers and were burnt into ashes in incinerators, proof of the Nazis' atrocities.
They were killing people like nothing. It didn't mean anything. The smell was so bad here from burning people.
The event can mark one of the last major anniversaries attended by a large showing of survivors, given that the youngest are now in their 70s. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
We haven't seen much snow lately here in Seoul with warmer than expected temperatures these days, but it's a different story over in Gangwon-do province where it's blanketed in snow. And that's a good thing because it's a site of the Tepic Mountain Snow Festival, the festival that only comes around during this time of the year. And our Lee Myuni takes us there.
Crystal clear skies and a winter wonderland. Every year, the Gangwon-do region gets blanketed in fluffy snow, creating a magical place that seems miles away from reality. Nestled within the area is the Tepic Mountain, a mountain that soars 1,576 meters into the blue skies, a mountain known for its famous azalea plants and ancient yew trees. But for now, everything is quiet underneath the winter snow. And to celebrate, a festival is held on the Tepic Mountain. People gather from all over the peninsula to trek the snowy paths and see the many beautiful sights of the mountain and the festival, including the massive ice sculptures that decorate these hills.
We don't see much snow in Suncheon, where we're from. Here, there are huge ice sculptures and beautiful green lights to see.
Away from the hustle and bustle of the city, this year's Tepic Mountain Snow Festival offers the entire family a whirlwind of an experience. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather outlook. It was a typical winter day under mostly clear skies, but snow showers continue to fall in areas along the eastern coast. As for tomorrow, rain clouds are set to move in, which should lead to snow or rainfall for the southern coastline before spreading to other regions down south. While it looks like about 1 to 5 centimeters of snow will drop over the Jeollado and Gyeongsang-namdo provinces, and a rainfall will accompany the snow. Up to 10 millimeters is forecast for Jeollanamdo, Gyeongsang-namdo provinces, as well as Jeju. Looking ahead, numbers are set to stay in the seasonal average range, but a cold wave watch has been issued for Gangwon-do province. Plus, cold air is set to move in from the north, making conditions feel a slightly colder than the actual numbers. On to tomorrow's readings. Seoul and Gwangju hit 4, while Busan hits 7. Meanwhile, rainy Jeju makes it to 8, Dokdo 4, Mount Kumgang hits -6. Those are the updates I have for Korea, and here's a look at the international weather.
And that does it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.